must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Fellow Africans, since 1957, when Ghana gained independence, there has been quite a lot of political, social, economic indicators on the African continent that show that Africa has progressed from pre-independence Africa to post-independence Africa.
Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. From now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
66 years down the road, Africa finds itself with the first country, Ghana, having gained independence. We find ourselves still locked up, controlled, manipulated, instructed, logistically supplied, equipped by foreign powers that dictate our agenda. Africa is endowed with plenty of minerals, resources, good weather. The climate is so favorable for the growth of food enough to sustain us. But we find ourselves in countries where hunger is killing people. Hunger is killing people because most of the people have taken to arms to fight wars, conflicts. Starvation has taken the place of development. In most African countries like Sudan, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Nigeria, in Biafra, and north of Nigeria there is Boko Haram, Somalia in the Horn of East Africa. We have taken to conflict instead of development. Development was the key indicator. When Kwame Nkrumah made the first speech that seek ye African political unity, economic development will come automatically, he was right. The events happening in Libya today vindicates Nkrumah, vindicates Nyerere, Sekou and Nasser. And the rape was in boundaries, that we received our flags, but we never received full independence as by the word independence. Most of the 3/4 of African countries, French-speaking countries, have their budgets being done in Paris. Is that independence? The Paris government or the French government does its budget based on how much they will get from African countries. Is that independence? Is this the Africa that you want? Is it the Africa that we must look at? Is it the Africa that we shall leave for the future generation? If the answer to you is yes, what is the legacy that Africa and African Union will leave for the future generation? The wars ranging in Libya, in South Sudan, in Khartoum, in Mogadishu, in DRC Congo, in Amazonia, in Cameroon, Boko Haram, Mali, in Mauritania, the uprisings in Algeria, all point to one thing: that yes, we are not yet independent. We are still controlled by external forces. Thank you. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Africa. Wherever you are in Cairo, wherever you are in Abidjan, wherever you are in Morocco, Rabat, good morning. Good morning, viewers, wherever you are in the world watching us right from Punchline Africa Television in Nairobi. With me in the studio this morning to dissect quite a lot of things, including we are mourning. We are mourning one of our sons of the great Africa, President Torotich Arap Moi, the late. We have been mourning for the last week. Tragedy struck us just last week. We thank all the people in the world, those who have sent in their condolences, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands who have lined up in Nairobi while he is lying in the state, the heart of the state. He lies in the state. It means he's taken over by another state. Those who know how many states we have, there's the shallow state, narrow state, deeper state, and another special state. At the moment, President Arap Torotich Moi is lying in the special state. The military takes over to conduct precisely what is supposed to be a funeral of the late president. With me in the studio to dissect all this and any other African news is none other than one, my own partner, Miriam Ogutu.
Good morning to you, Dr. Matanga.
Yes, good morning.
It's another great time. I think our viewers really missed us, so we're back now.
We are back. We are doing a few renovations, and we are sending signals. And right now, we are in a new studio, wherever we are in Africa on satellite. Thank you very much, our satellite partners in Bahrain, for picking us immediately. Thank you very much. May God hold your hands wherever you are. We want to preach the gospel to Africa. We want to say what is supposed to be said. We want to praise the Son of Africa, the late. Those who are calling now, you have to wait until the calls are opened. We haven't opened the calls, and the call center is not yet open. So please, if you want to make any contribution, just wait until we open the call center. First of all, thank you very much, those in South Africa, Johannesburg, Addis Ababa, the headquarters of African Union. Thank you very much. I will talk about African Union top of the hour. Today we have changed the format. We shall have the 1 hour for Good Morning Africa, with news compressed on Africa, and with news about Kenya, about the entire Africa, bringing news and the events and the newspapers making headlines in Kenya and the headlines that are on the papers in Kenya. Thereafter, we shall move to diplomatic leaks. This is one of the shows. We have chosen 3 good shows. And there will be also a night show each day where we shall look at things, how they are happening across the continents of the world. That will be this diaspora dispatches. Let me give it to Miriam to begin with the Kenyan news. The legacy of President Torotich Arap Moi. Education, sports, culture. What do we have about this guy? This man was excellent. This man was a man who never lost any sleep. He gave his people the will to understand what sports is. He gave incentives. He gave education. 8+4. That's very strong type of education. Education in Kenya at that time, it came when Uganda was trying to get itself out of the limbo. And many people came across to Kenya to teach because there was this 8-farm foundation, good schools in Uganda were downtrodden by Idi Amin's bad manners. But here we are now today. Africa stands at loss. We've lost our brother. Thank you.
All right, and indeed, in matters education, we know the late President Daniel Torotich Arap Moi was known to be, he was not just a teacher before he entered politics, but he brought the classroom with him in all his political career, and he remained in class, even in the manner in which he was leading this country. 24 years, the longest serving president in the Republic of Kenya, and he led to the formation of the Kenya National Union. He's the one who actually, brought a bill in Parliament that he realized that teachers are not really, represented well in Parliament, in the government. And those days, education was in the form of caste. So the colonialists and the Europeans, they had their own schools, and then that were very good quality and very good quality in terms of education and even the structural, the facilities there. And then the second tier was for the Asians, and Africans had the last tier, which was they were just going to have the basic education, because anyway, Africans are not supposed to have the skills to have a profession, so they were just meant to be subordinates. So they made sure that the Kenyan teachers and students got the lower part of the education. And Moi, having tasted some education there, and being that he was a teacher, he felt after he became the president, and even before he became the president, he said this was not right, and so he sought to form a body that will represent the teachers, and so the professionalism, the teaching professionalism in Kenya will be recognized and given, the recognition and the representation that it deserves. So Moi played a huge role in terms of formulating what today we know as the Kenya National Union of Teachers, and later on also he was the one who later made sure that the other bodies that take care of teachers' matters, were implemented and were formed. But also we see that immediately took power in 1978, President Moi did two things. First, he abolished fees in upper primary schools. So education in Kenya, so it's not President Moi Kibaki who came with the free primary education. There's a time in this country before President Moi Kibaki, who was the third president of the Republic of Kenya, came to power in 2002. But before that, there are times that this country, the children of this country, enjoyed a free primary education. This was after a declaration at the Addis Ababa, that said that governments in Africa should start introducing free education from class 1 to class 4. But Moi took it all the way to class 7, and so Moi came and extended it to class 7 there. For the first time, Kenya offered a free education throughout the entire primary school. And we saw, even today, when you look at the people who went to school those days, there's a huge difference, Doctor,
yes.
The quality of education then and what we have today.
We have,
yes.
I think today we have an education system that has collapsed, a system that has gone down. The grades seem to have gone down. We have a system in Kenya, not only in Kenya, in Africa, the entire Africa, a system that has produced more job seekers than job makers. The Moi system produce, at least you come out, there is something you are going to do. And that is exactly what the 844 could bring. I remember myself, I was a student in the 60s in this 844, this junior 2, junior 3, junior 1, junior 2, then you go to O levels, then A levels. That is the system that worked in Uganda, and that system produced very good people in Uganda. Moi continued with the legacy. The most important thing on education, Kenyatta, the late Jomo Kenyatta, emphasized people must emulate and learn from what they had and do something different. You remember the philosophy of late Kenyatta was, if you unaona mzungu, kwa nini sasa unamwangalia? Na wewe enda kufanya hivyo. Go and do that. The late Kenyatta was saying, go and do it. Why can't you go and do it instead of lamenting? Most of the Africans these days, Miriam, they lament. They lament because they don't have jobs. They don't create jobs. But the late Kenyatta was saying, create your own jobs. Do your own economy. Compete with them. Competition became the norm of Kenya. And since then, Kenya has not rested in terms of competition. I think that is as far as education is concerned. When you come to peace, love, and unity, you can see that it is the same model that President Uhuru Kenyatta is following. President Uhuru Kenyatta is saying, without peace, you cannot have unity. And without love, you cannot have unity. So let's begin by forgiving each other, reconciling with each other, talking to each other, not at each other. That is the policy that the president is advocating for. And I believe very many people are seeing the truth of this.
And of course, they became to be known as the Nyayo philosophy, and Nyayo stems from the word, footsteps. So Moi was following the footsteps of his predecessor, that is our first president here, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. So he said because he was the vice president when the first president died, so he said he shall follow the footsteps. So it became later on he was referred to as Nyayo because it became synonymous with him. And so peace, love, and unity became the Nyayo philosophy. Wherever he could go, Moi always insisted we have to be at peace with each other, we have to be at unity, and we have to love each other as Kenyans first, so that anything else can come after that. But he was very, very insistent on that. But looking at the situation today, we understand why peace, love, and unity formed his philosophy at that time. And today, I think we need this today more than before.
Exactly, Miriam. Kenyans need this today. They don't need it tomorrow. You can see the type of people who are throwing words at each other. It is only this death that has cooled down the temperatures.
Thank God.
The temperatures had risen so high to the situation, to the angle that you can not even communicate. Communication was impossible with certain people. And they are not yet finished. One of the people who went wrong this morning or yesterday was Miguna. People have been, praising Miguna. There's one side of government in this country that has been praising Miguna. I can't see them now because Miguna went and attacked a wrong nerve.
What did he do?
He went and attacked Kibaki yesterday. The whole Twitter came back on Miguna. I told people here to stop sympathizing with Miguna. Because Miguna is a one man who will never say thank you to you. Even if you gave him 20 million, he will never say thank you. I'm telling you. So there are people here who did not know. Now, yesterday, they saw. When he was abusing Uhuru Kenyatta, they were clapping. When he was abusing Raila Odinga, they were clapping. Yesterday, he turned on one of the most humble people, We have had presidents. We have had Kibaki.
Why because Kibaki yesterday was at the Parliament building.
He wrote so many bad things. If you can go, I think our production team can bring out some of the things that the Miguna wrote on Twitter. The production team can look for some of the things. So Kenyans have come back hitting him. They now realize the mistake. That they realize that we have been telling them the truth about Miguna. And thank you very much, viewers. That is exactly what the situation is as far as peace, love, and the unity is concerned. Another thing that the president wanted so much, or where he was very strong, was the question of economy. I want to touch on this question of economy because it is on the president, the late President Torotich, not only. You remember IMF and the World Bank refused him loans. He said to go to hell. You can go. He worked for 10 years. 10 years without any loan from the World Bank. Without any loan from IMF. The country thrived. And I guess he was only feeding. He was not feeding one country. He was feeding several countries in East and Central Africa. All these countries needed the help of Kenya. We got goods from Kenya. We smuggled goods from Kenya. The word called magendo came from Kenya. So that is it. That is, the economy grew. In 1983-84, we know what happened. In 1982, there was a backdrop. We retarded a bit because of
the attempted coup.
Economy, yes. The country also experienced another biting drought in 1991. And 92, followed by extreme destructive rains.
Yes, in 1997.
You can go ahead and enumerate those.
And of course, this brought a lot of drought and power rationing in 2000, and this really affected the Kenyan economy, which was otherwise doing very well. And yes, these are just some of the events that contributed to sometimes stagnation of the economy. But otherwise, President Moi, as Dr. Matanga there mentioned earlier, IMF and World Bank refused to be loaning Kenyans some money 10 years, and he really forged on like the soldier that he was. He found ways of taking care of the country even in the most difficult of times. And Moi's legacy we can see by the number of Kenyans who are trooping. Even as we speak, today is the last day for the public viewing. Tomorrow there will be, I think, a mass service at the Nyayo Stadium, which was named after him. Remember, Nyayo, as I said, there comes from the word footsteps, and that became another part of his name, Nyayo, there. And so tomorrow we shall have a service for him at the Nyayo National Stadium. But Kenyans, you can see the love and the impact that President Moi had 24 years in this country. Kenyans really have been impacted. And you can see yesterday was on Sunday and Saturday. And even today, as we speak right now, hundreds and thousands of Kenyans are lining up at the Kenyan Parliament buildings to go and pay their last respect to our former president there. And that really must be quite a relief, especially to the family. Imagine if the body was just there, brought to the Parliament buildings, and nobody cared to go and pay their last, respect. That shows that truly Moi, impacted this country, and his 24 years legacy is something that we cannot wish away from any books of history in this country.
On the question of patriotism, how many people today are lining up to see Moi? The younger generation, they want to know, who is this leader? Why is it so that everybody talks about him? Look at the younger generation, what they are doing. They are doing it because they want to see. If your father tells you that I grew up drinking some milk,
I grew up drinking milk.
Yes.
Until 1996.
He encouraged education, incentive.
Yes, he did.
Milk was an incentive.
Yes, to encourage more.
To go to school, to stay in school.
Yes.
So that you can come to, that is the type, those are type of incentives that are lacking.
And after I introduced that, there was recorded a 95% of increase of school-going children. In fact, this shocked the statistics across the world, which with enrollment, in schools, I think because of the free milk, and this making Kenya a case study and a feat for which President Moi was invited to give a keynote address at the first international conference on education for all, because they could not understand how is it that this country is able to enroll this many students, but the milk was one of the incentives that attracted a lot of children and parents to have them go to school.
I think when it comes to milk, free meals are always very good for education. If you have a free meal, not only in education, the guy encouraged it, sports. By if you win, you play nice, you score. Dow. There was a man called Dow.
Peter Dow.
Peter Dow.
Well,
Dow na mpira. Dow na mpira. Dow na mpira. Dow with the ball. Dow with the ball. Score. Yes. And Moi could come up and call Dow to State House. When you come out, there's no way you could go to State House and come out not smiling.
Without a few acres.
No. There were no acres.
But he would appreciate
it. Was smiling.
He would reward the talent.
Yes.
Of
people did not know. I am always straightforward. Professor Makau Mutua, your article is useless. A man of that caliber, you should forgive. You should have a tone of forgiveness, Professor. You cannot write such an article. You saw the article Makau Mutua wrote yesterday. What suffering did he go through that other people have not gone through? Makau Mutua was just an academic. He was never imprisoned. But even people who are imprisoned by Moi have even forgiven everything, or who are imprisoned under Moi regime. But Makau Mutua's article yesterday went extreme. Not everybody is very pleased. I am not. At least for me, with Makau Mutua, we seize the fire. But if he comes back, I'm going to write today to counter his stupidity. Makau Mutua is a legal mind, is a very good legal mind, but a very poor timer on African, situation.
This might not be the right time.
This is not the right time. Professor Makau Mutua, this is not the right time.
He should read the mood.
You should read the mood. Exactly. You read the mood and understand why it is impossible for you to be hailed as a hero who has written that believe, like me or not. This is not the time to say, like me, hate me. No, this is the time to mourn. As an African, you mourn a departed soul. You don't insult a departed soul. So many of us have wounds. So many of us have suffered. So many of us have suffered from the hands of dictators. But we don't go around every street, every newspaper to write the wounds that we have received. Reconciliation. If Makau Mutua supports BBI, then where is the reconciliation? If Makau Mutua supports the healing process, where is the healing process? And this is why we need to stand firm, talk firmly, execute our mandate as media, as a fourth estate, not to publish sentiments today that incite Kenyans to hate each other.
And yes, indeed. And of course, he was in power for 24 years. I mean, what do you expect? And a lot of things that happened, especially after the coup in 1982, that how he led sort of changed because of that attempted coup. And that will change for any leader. But also, what can we do about what can we learn about the past moving forward? Because it is not just enough to sit and castigate. What has passed has passed. What has been done has been done. We cannot undo some of these things from the past. But I remember the speech that Moi gave his last Jamhuri Day when he came out and he sort of reconciled his past with the future, and he said, you know, if I have wronged anybody, then I ask that they may forgive me, and if you have wronged me, I have forgiven you. I think that was a very pivotal point at President Moi's legacy and life, because he realizes all these years he's been in power, there are things that he might have done that were not okay, that might have hurt some people, might have caused some hurtful things to some people, and so he asked for forgiveness, because that is the much he could do. I mean, and so that was that in the past, and so he seems to have reconciled himself, his past and his future, and so people like Raila Odinga have come out and said, you know what, me and Moi, we settled, we are fine, we are at peace, we talked about it, I mean, and he accepted the forgiveness and they talked about it, and a host of other people. So, I mean, talking about the future is sometimes we have to talk about it as from the point of, okay, so now what can we learn from moving forward, and so it's not just enough to sit and castigate. And so if there are lessons that we can carry from the leadership of President Moi, 24 years in this country, then that perhaps would help us move forward. But just dwelling in the past sometimes even hinders us from growing, hinders us from forgiving, and hinders us from moving forward. So what is it that we can take from that and move forward instead of just sitting there and castigating? He's dead. What are you going to do about it now? He cannot speak for himself. He cannot answer any of these queries, but he reconciled his past with the present. And so I don't know, for those who feel they have to, of course, speak about some of these things that were quite public knowledge, but perhaps this is not the time. And I don't know, that has been overshadowed, I think, by the love that Kenyans have continued to show President Moi, even while they're trooping in Parliament, even as we speak right now.
Yes.
There are lots of Kenyans there who are trying to make their way. They've left their offices, they've left their homes. I saw coming to work in the morning a lot of buses traveling, even one from Moi High School, Kabarak,
yes,
which is one of the schools that he built from scratch, and schools like State House Girls he built from scratch, Kabarak University that has become one of the best universities, Sunshine School, all the schools that Moi built from scratch. We see they've thrived, they're doing very well, and they're the best even in terms of the national schools that we have in this country. So his contribution to this country, I don't care what you say, will be remembered for years and ages to come. So instead of just sitting and lamenting on what happened in the past, what is it that we can learn moving forward? I think that is what we should look at this time. And so castigating him, whatever happened, I think this might not be the right time, owing to his status and to the legacy he has in this country. There should be another time for that, but for now, let's just celebrate the many good things that he did to this country 24 years when he was the president of Kenya.
Yeah, thank you very much. When we turn now to the foreign policy, President Moi's foreign policy was firm, very dynamic, a dynamic foreign policy that actually brought Kenya to the world map. He was one of the few presidents who made four United States presidents. He went to US. He's gone without any sanction. Nobody has sanctioned President Moi. Nobody is sanctioning him. Nobody has told President Moi never to go to United States of America. Nobody has worked against him to say, this is what you have done. We don't want you to travel here. He has been traveling up to the time when he became ill. But if you look at many African countries, many Africans, most of their presidents are even on blacklist of not being able to travel to United States of America. What do you think about that?
Yes, indeed. So that also tells you, of course, those days he would have, attracted sanction because, Kenya, multi-party democracy was returned in December of 1991. Before that, especially after the attempted coup, there Kenya became the one party de facto. So only KANU was a legal party in this country. And so, it caused a lot of people a lot of problems. People like Raila, Moi Kibaki, the late, I can't remember his name, but a lot of people. And so the space was opened in 1991 December for multipartyism here in Kenya that introduced Kenyans to another new level of democracy and governance. And we could question, not to the full extent, but Kenyans are able to engage and elect the leaders that they really wanted. And so it doesn't matter whether you agree with what Moi did or not, but his impact and his legacy, I think, still lives on and shall continue to live on with the things that he did, the infrastructure that he put in place, like the Moi International Sports Center in Kasarani, I think the KICC, and all of that were hinged under his legacy.
Thank you very much, viewers. Thank you. And we look at, again, democracy and governance. Mm-hmm. Democracy and governance under President Moi was a challenging issue. Balancing. You needed a balancing act.
Yes.
Remember, we are celebrating the life of President Torotich Arap Moi. Mm-hmm. The morning goes hand in hand with celebrations. In Africa, we do it that way. In Africa, we make it a point that East or West, any type of what happens will never change what has taken place. Mm-hmm. So, in democracy, there were ups and downs, bad alleys, dark alleys.
Very dark alleys.
And
yes.
To some extent, he became one of the most important pillars of our struggle. Mm. He gave up to parties.
He did.
1992.
He opened up.
Very few presidents in Africa can do that.
We see them around here.
In Uganda, we fought for multipartyism. Mm-hmm. And many people left Uganda to seek exile, to be in exile because of the fight against a single party. Luckily enough, some of us were in London. We advocated for it. We bothered President Museveni from all angles because he was saying parties bring a lot of divisions.
And that was Moi's thinking
Yes.
initially, but the wave of change that was especially coming from Europe, and the Kenyans were slowly becoming very woke at that time, and the agitation continued. And so when he said he shall go, and even after he was retiring in 2002, some of his very close allies were telling him, we could just change this constitution. We could just have a constitutional coup, and you will still go for another term. And he said, no, enough is enough. I think I've served Kenyans. And I think he left Kenya with honor. And he said enough is enough. So he chose President Uhuru Kenyatta, who, of course, then did not make it. But now, later on, he was able to be elected. But he said enough is enough. Let me just hand this over to another person to lead this country. So that he left with his dignity. He left with honor. And so that explains why you see a lot of Kenyans trooping in Parliament buildings today to pay their respect to Moi, because he left an honorable man.
Very honorable. He left. 2002, I was at the stadium. I saw what happened. I saw the handover. How good was it to have the handover? I saw the seriousness of a very organized system, a system that was giving way from one to the other. But one thing that struck me out in that Uhuru Park was the type of insults, the type of Makaumu tours who turned around and started throwing stones, throwing mud, and shouting obscenities against President Moi. Such a thing should not happen in Africa.
Never again.
Never should you allow. You know, what makes leaders in Africa refuse to hand over power? What makes President Museveni, for example, to refuse to hand over power? If Besigye is telling President Museveni every minute that when we take over power, we shall do away with everything that Museveni has done. Do you think Museveni can give power? Do you think President Museveni will relinquish power? No.
He'll be scared.
He will not relinquish power.
Yes.
So in Africa, when you are given a chance, don't say we shall revenge. Be accommodative, have leadership qualities, take over power, things will be okay.
Things will be okay. And
yes.
Also, we cannot forget in terms of foreign policies and the global issues that Moi his contribution, especially in the East African community.
Yes, we had forgotten that point.
Yes, Moi played a very critical role in formation of the East African community.
The revival.
The revival, yes.
The revival of East African community. Remember, Idi Amin had collapsed it completely. Moi is a Pan-African. A Pan-African by value. Moi was, you don't talk. By now, the things happening in AU, Moi would have spoken out. He would have told his foreign minister to go and tell those people. How many presidents in Africa today can stand up to say, we don't want this in African Union? This is the only place where you, as an African, you have a say. But you can't give powers to one executive AU chairperson who gives you the directive, who tells you not to go and attend a swearing-in ceremony in Congo. I am coming to that. Don't hit me now. Don't make me hot, because I'm coming to that in diplomatic leaks. But Moi would have just said, enough is enough. Go and tell them Kenya is pulling out. On international scene, Montreal, the Commonwealth Games, the Olympics, Moi boycotted them. He led the world. People asked, is Kenya coming? He said, no, they are not coming.
And Kenya is very significant.
Yes,
to this.
They are not coming because of the apartheid regime. The mistreatment of the black people of South Africa.
So he stood in
yes,
solidarity.
he boycotted.
These South Africans that are now killing other Africans.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
South Africans who don't want other blacks to come. We used to pay tax. In my country, we grew up. I actually paid some tax to liberate South Africa. On your poll tax, it was indicated, Uganda used to pay poll tax, indicated South Africa contribution for ANC. We have come a long way to create those territories in Southern Africa. Our cry for freedom for our friends. Moi played a pivotal role. Moi played a pivotal role in liberation of Uganda under Idi Amin. I can't sit here and have called myself a full Ugandan if I don't discuss it. He helped us to overthrow Idi Amin. May your soul rest in peace.
Yes, indeed. And still, he also fought for the formation of the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa countries, that is the COMESA. And Moi also was very passionate in uniting all African countries for economic gain. So he was really, passionate about bringing Africa together, sort of what Gaddafi wanted, for us to have one trading bloc that is very strong. And so Moi really was very passionate about Kenya. I mean, African, not just Kenyan economy, but African economy growth and development. And he realized that our strength is in our unity.
Yes.
Together. Yes.
Thank you very much. We want to finally touch on security. Moi never took chances on security.
He did not.
And regional and national. That is one of the things I liked him about. For example, now, he would have already hit Somalia several times and occupied that Indian Ocean.
Those blocks.
Yes. The Kenyan Navy would be, however small it was, it would be on the Navy. Moi does not take chances on security matters. The shifters, you remember, who wanted to cut Kenya to pieces. He said he went there. He finished the shifter. He finished the shifters. They kept, it brought peace. There is a semblance of peace that was brought.
Yes.
May his soul,
may his soul
rest in peace.
Yes, indeed.
I give you time. Viewers, wherever you are, briefly, we have 20 minutes or 18 minutes. Thereabout, just to briefly touch African news, and we see how best we come. Coming up next is diplomatic digs that you will see at the top of the hour, and then we go on. Later on in our show, we shall have what we call the punch? The judiciary. Is it retarding our? Those are the programs lined up for you. Over to you, Miriam.
Yes, indeed. And just to take a look at what is happening in other countries in Africa this morning, we start with Guinea, and the European Union has expressed its readiness to contribute to an exclusive dialogue in Guinea following the announcement of a constitutional referendum, which the opposition denounces as a maneuver by President Alpha Conde to seek a third term in office at the end of 2020. Guinea has been the scene of protests since mid-October last year, which have left at least 29 people dead and 28 civilians, and against the long-standing plan of president elected in 2010 and elected in 2015 to seek a third term. At the end of 2020, the current constitution limits the number of presidential terms to 2. And we go to Cameroon, and Cameroon voted on Sunday in polls overshadowed by a partial opposition boycott and Anglophone violence that has displaced hundreds of thousands of people. Elections from the Central African country's legislature and local councils took place for the first time in 7 years after 2 postponements. And we go to Malawi now. President Peter Mutharika and the country's electoral commission have formally filed an appeal against a court ruling that overturned Mutharika's narrow election victory last year. And we go to Angola, where Angolan President João Lourenço on Friday told the visiting German Chancellor Angela Merkel that his reformist government was working to recover funds stolen from public coffers and stashed abroad. Last month, Angola indicated Isabel dos Santos, the 46-year-old billionaire daughter of ex-President Jose Eduardo dos Santos, for a host of top-level financial crimes, including money laundering and influence peddling. And we go to the Ivory Coast, where International Criminal Court judges should scrap conditions of release imposed on Ivorian Coast former president and his lawyers argued on Thursday in a move they hope will free Laurent Gbagbo to return home during a tense election year. Gbagbo and former youth minister Charles Blé Goudé were both acquitted in January 2019 of crimes against humanity charges linked to their alleged roles in deadly violence that erupted following disputed elections in 2010. Prosecutors for the International Court, which also handles cases involving alleged genocide and war crimes, have appealed their acquittals, and they said during Thursday's hearing in The Hague that they wanted to stage a retrial. And we go to Sudan, where the United Nations Security Council Secretary General Antonio Guterres has told African leaders that it is time to remove Sudan from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. Addressing the annual African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Mr. Guterres said the UN would drum up international support that will enable the country to overcome its challenges. And we go to South Sudan, where the main signatories to the September 2018 peace accord have failed to reach an agreement aimed at resolving the contentious issues of this number of states, with Kiir's side unwilling to remove a single state. The two principals, President Salva Kiir and Dr. Riek Machar, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, and Sudanese Prime Minister Hamdok held a closed-door meeting for hours in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa at the weekend, but nothing fruitful emerged out of the discussion. The Minister of Information Sudan. Michael McCoy says Dr. Riek Machar opted to return to 10 states. McCoy stated that the government maintained its position of 32 states plus a BAE administrative area and is not ready in any way to reduce the number of states from the current 32 states. And still in South Sudan, with 2 weeks remaining from a 100-day deadline from the formation of South Sudan Transitional Government, the African Union has appealed to government forces to vacate illegally occupied civilian premises as per the security arrangements. This comes as the AU chairperson Musa Faki Muhammad threatened to impose sanctions on individuals standing in the way of peace. And that is the latest. If there's any news happening again across Africa, please let us know and we shall be happy to share with the rest of our viewers. Doctor, a problem bring there in South Sudan. What is happening with these leaders there in South Sudan?
Miriam, I told you. I think now you can say I'm a prophet. I told you that come what may, we are not in yet. Have you seen what they are saying? IGAD is trying to find whether this signature will land on this thing and everything will be formed within the 100 days. They are going, time is ticking, time is going, there are tactics being played. Tell me, believe me or not, we are in for a shocker.
So you don't see this happening at all? The peace deal, the unity government. I mean, are they?
First of all,
why are they taking us
no.
for a ride?
First of all, Miriam,
yes.
there's a reason.
Yes.
There's a reason here.
Yes.
The whole basis of the peace process in South Sudan was wrong.
From the start.
Was wrong, and Africans need to be told the truth at times. Africans need to be told it was wrong. There was no peace process here. This was structuring death.
Structuring death.
Yes, I am always honest. And let an African at my age, I am not going to talk nonsense. I talk wisdom and let people take it. The peace process in South Sudan was structured wrongly. You cannot do a peace process without accountability.
Yeah.
I told you. There was no accountability. Hallelujah. There was no accountability. 384,000 people perished. And you tell me you are going to make a peace process, political arrangement of increasing deputy presidents, deputy vices, vice 1, vice 2, vice 3. Wrong. IGAD should have put down their feet. The whole of this problem is until they revise and listen to us, to experts who know what a peace process is. There was no peace process. There was a structuring, killing machinery being restructured to kill each other. This thing of Riek and Salva Kiir, this thing is being restructured to kill each other. You will see. It can't happen. It won't happen. You know why? Each side now harbors enmity, suspicion. Why? There are people pressing. We lost people. What are you going to tell those villagers in South Sudan? What happened? What happened?
What happened? You think they have those answers to the people of South Sudan who are they only wish they could have their country back? That they never got to enjoy.
And those are the questions they're asking. What happened? Are you not asking what happened? These guys just entered and killed people. They just went in and killed people. The war just broke. They killed people in big blood bath. The biggest blood bath, second to Rwanda, happened here in that River Nile Valley. In those areas of state the state, the all Ibo, Obo, all those areas. Bo, you know, the Battle of Bo, you remember when the people massacred people, just killed people. And now you are telling me, it's a peace process.
It's a peace process.
Let them do this. I told you, let South Africa, this man called Sabuza or Mabuza, the Vice President Mabuza, go back to the drawing table. If you want to save Africans, go back to the drawing table.
And what is interesting, Doctor, and I know we'll speak about AU in a short bit, but the AU chairperson on this matter, Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, threatened to impose sanctions on individuals standing in the way of peace. Now,
why didn't he do it? I have been calling for these sanctions long time ago. That guy of AU, forget about him. He's part of the French delay tactics to dismember every country in Africa. As I will see in the second part, I think I've done my best to tell Africans we should have gone in a different way. You can't collect two armies. Bring them together and say in the field and say blow the whistle, whoo, go. That's what they did. That's what IGAD did. When you see these guys wearing suits running around the AU, as if they came from angel, God sent them. You who is an activist who has been telling them the truth, they think you are stupid. Some of these people just go there to collect allowances. They collect allowances, government allowances. They don't know anything. It's just to go there and sleep in a free hotel and eat free breakfast.
And get the
and what does AU bring us on table? What does the AU bring us on table? If you cannot discuss the conflict in Cameroon, what is AU? If you cannot discuss conflict in Biafra, what is AU? If you cannot resolve South Sudan, what is AU? If you cannot tell me about Boko Haram, what is AU? If you cannot tell me about Libya, what is AU? You sit with the enemy who killed us. We sit with the enemy who killed us. Who dismembered Libya? France. Who spearheaded the bombing of Libya? France. It is us begging the same money to cool a conflict in Libya from France, which is taking part. It is us begging the same money to bring about a conflict. When Egypt was the chairperson and Egypt arms General Haftar Khalifa. What is
what's wrong with us?
What's AU?
That's AU.
Where is AU? What?
Doctor, I see you on the AU train, but let me just hold it for a while because I don't want us to spoil at the top of the hour. You still have 5 minutes to go. But first, Doctor, there's something that is underlying here, but that perhaps somebody we may not be looking too much into it, and that is because the signing of this peace deal and the unity government will signal now a structure that will enable the country to go to an election in a few months' time. Because
which election?
That is what I'm saying. So maybe there are people somewhere who do not want elections because they've seen this a perspective of them not being elected back or not being voted back with the the people of South Sudan. So could this be a delayed tactics?
Ma'am, you create an election. Election
because
where?
Part of the peace deal.
One
of the requirements.
To elect what? Where are you going?
An election in a few months.
Most of the people have not accounted for the dead.
Yes.
Most of the people in South Sudan are mourning. Some people have not found their relatives. Some people have lost. Entire killing machinery took place. Jamen, let's wake up from slumber and face facts. You cannot do a peace process like the way you are doing it in South Sudan. 0
and 11 days to go.
Yes.
Okay. which is...
it is going to be a mockery.
It's going to be a mockery.
I will be here to broadcast. Thank you very much, viewers.
It's going to be a very sad mockery.
Unless you have, like, look at Africa. Why is Africa extending time?
Like what? Conde. Has he not seen what this...
No, Conde. Now the European Union says, yes, we give you. Because France wants to use Conde. What is the European Union? It's France.
They're coming into...
It is only France that has remained a superpower there.
Have a dialogue.
Who else can oppose France? Now they will give them what? Money for dialogue. To dialogue on what? This guy ruled his time finished.
Let him go.
Go home.
Why are you dialoguing? Because, there has been some changes. Of course, the president has announced some constitutional changes, which the opposition denounces as a maneuver by President Alpha Conde to stick to power. His term ends this year.
Yes.
10 years is not enough.
10 years.
According to the constitution.
Then if it is, look, let me tell Africans the truth. If 10 years are not enough, then leave constitutions that are everlasting, like Britain. The British constitution allows the prime minister to be voted out by the party. And it has created, you know what it has created? It has created the most serious part of freedom in the United Kingdom. The winning party forms the government. There's no need about... You people in Kenya have made a very terrible mistake. And let the Kenyans hear me. The moment you mix up your constitution with presidential elections, you are dead people. You will fight again and fight. Let the winning party in this country make government. Whether it makes a government under who or who, it is up to you. If you have organized your party very well, your ideas have been bought, and the country accepts your ideas, you sell the idea to the government, to the people. They elect you, you go to parliament, form a cabinet.
But what also is very surprising, or it's a part that I really don't understand about this, the reforms that President Alpha Conde intends to do. Now, the country, of course, is preparing for an electoral process and for the parliamentary elections on the 1st of March. The next month, I think. And now President Conde wants to put the parliamentary elections together with a referendum, a constitutional referendum. Where in the world have you ever heard? Where has that happened?
It is sad that at this hour we are in chaos. Therefore, Miriam, it is chaos. Miriam will have a show at 4 p.m., the Diaspora Dispatches. Finish it at 5, and Your Africa, the entire Africa news, bring them there. Enjoy it. Thank you very much. Right. What do you think?
All right.
We have done our best.
Yes, we have.
We don't know whether we can read the headlines in Kenya. The journey home.
It's top of the hour, yes.
The top of the hour. Moi felt he was next after GM Kariuki. That's sensational. They Moi braved gunfire at home. Some people writing stories were not there, but some of us were there. So ask some of us. Yesterday I was on KBC. 21 million people watched me. Even I want to thank my mom. Mom, thank you very much. She was watching.
KBC is in Uganda.
All everywhere. KBC is in Africa.
Yes, all over Africa. Yes.
All over Africa, Central Africa, in Congo Brazzaville. Mom sent a text.
She watched it.
Yes.
That's very good.
Thank you, Mom. And look, the things I was talking, I think she saw it. She said, this guy is now big and telling the truth. Yes, we saw everything here, what was happening. We thank you very much, viewers. This is Punchline Africa Television, our new station, our new format, our new way of doing things. This is the second hour of our broadcast this morning. We are now going to switch gears after an interval of about 5 minutes. We shall begin with diplomatic leaks. I and Miriam go through the diplomatic leaks. Today, don't miss it. It's at the top of the hour, which is already now 2 minutes past 12. We shall return here at 7 minutes past to give you diplomatic leaks. The African Union, has it outlived its usefulness? I'm speaking the Uganda style. Has it outlived its usefulness? What do you think, Miriam?
I think it has.
It has.
They have to restructure.
The man is giving sanctions now when he should have given sanctions for people to sign this thing long time ago. Has African Union been captured? How many of you think so? Talk to us. Telephone number 07 95 638 145. Nairobi, Kenya. We are mourning. Don't forget. Had Moi been alive and the president, he would have already gone to South Sudan and the Riyak would have signed the agreement.
Yes.
Thank you. God bless you. See you in the next side of the river. Thank you.